Start your mornings with something extraordinary. Introducing Monkey Werx Chimpurrado, a delicious Mexican canela medium roast with irresistible notes of chocolate and cinnamon. Each cup transports you to the heart of Mexico, where the rich flavors of Mexican cinnamon meet the smoothness of medium roast coffee, kissed by a hint of chocolate. It's more than just coffee. It's a warm embrace, a moment of connection, and the perfect start to your day. Monkey Werx's Chimpurrado, for those who crave excellence in every sip. Available now at monkeywerx.com.
All right, hey, welcome, folks. Going to be your sit rep. It's 11/18/2025. Come to you live here from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. And so up front, I'm just going to go ahead and welcome the White House, the intelligence community, all you bunch of cheeky monkeys that are watching this show today, because this is going to be a Glenn Beck level analysis. I'm going to go into a lot of details around Venezuela and the Epstein aspect of all of this. Now, I will tell you, I'm not talking about anything that's insider knowledge or classified, etc. This is all open source, and I'm just good at connecting dots. So we're going to connect some dots today. We're going to go over everything from what's in play, funding cycles, all of it, and why I believe these Epstein files will never see the light of day. And we're going to go into the details around that as well. Now, I'm going to tell you, before we get started, go ahead and get your cup of coffee and get ready, because this is going to be a lot of data thrown at you. You're going to be drinking from a fire hose. No two ways about that. So now let's go ahead. I'm just going to take you over real fast while we're up in Skyglass. The interesting thing here is Air Force One is up. Normally, now, and this is why I say this is kind of strange, because it is, the designator AF1 that is only used when the president is actually on board Air Force One, right? It normally, as you remember, all the times we track it, it's NA, etc. Right now, he is on board. Has to. I mean, that's the only reason they would say Air Force One, right? That's what makes the 747 the Air Force One, is the president's butt in the seat. So now, I don't think he's on there, because we get over here to what is going on in terms of his calendar today. And you'll notice that we are once again entertaining the Muslims, all right, coming in. Now, I will tell you, all of this, you're talking about the crown prince showing up, et cetera, from Saudi. All of that is going to be tied into Middle East peace. That is the direction Trump is going. I'm telling you right now, he will sell his soul to get Middle East peace. And that is what he is going to hang his entire presidency on, is Middle East peace. And it'll come. It'll be a false peace, but it'll come. All right. Now, that's what's going on his calendar today. But I get back over here to this. I'm going to go ahead and take away Air Force One off of that. I'm going to back up what we're looking at. Let me turn off the live feed here too, because it will make it lag just a little. And we're going to back up, take a look at what's in the skies. And we're sitting at, about 336 currently over the United States, which is a pretty heavy day considering the fact I've already taken out 114 X-2 trainers, about 60 T-38s, a boatload of helicopters, and it's a lot. So given all of that, we'd be plus 500 in terms of what is actually up in the air right now, military-wise, okay? Now, let me jump over to this, and you'll note, too, from the H-60 perspective, the Blackhawks, right, the 60s, as we like to call them, very, very busy on the East Coast, not so much on the West Coast yet, or as I like to say, the left coast. 61 currently up, which is a very high number. Our average is probably baseline around 25. It used to be 6 to 8, but that is a higher elevated number. And I don't go down and drill down into the deets around that, because it could very well be some type of ice activity, et cetera. So let's keep on keeping on. Now, you'll notice the high flyers. I kick this thing up to the side. Notice what is missing. Stuff over the center of the United States. We typically see them up. They are up. They're just not showing. Same thing out here. But you can see some of the high flyers. Now, if you look at the ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aspects, You'll notice that the United States is covered up by about maybe 75, 80% activity over the U.S. So that tells you there's a lot of intelligence gathering happening over our heads right now as we speak. Now, let me do this. I'm going to just start going right into it, and we'll start talking about sequences and how all of this stuff comes into play and why it's important to take note of it. Okay. Now, start off, I'll just show you what the ISR, right, community. This is going to be primarily LaSalle Aviation. Just notice the United States over the last 5 days is absolutely covered up intelligence-wise. The southern border, very active, right? You can see a transition going across the drink into Europe, right? And note that it didn't land in the UK. It landed down near Malta. Right, and then you can see it take off and disappear. Now you'll notice too, you see some activity on the southern end of the Black Sea, and then the usual stuff up towards the northern end of Europe along the border of Belarus and Russia. The normal stuff over Israel and the normal stuff over South Korea. All right, let's talk drones for a second. You'll notice some big transitions. You'll notice some things that go out to Hawaii and then break out and go out to the Pacific, right? The South Pacific. Now, notice this one that jolts down out of the U.S., gets over Mexico, and then it goes straight across Venezuela, right? Kind of an interesting flight pattern. So more than likely a Q4, high altitude, nothing they would have been able to do about it. Notice it arrives over here in or near, pretty close to, I think that's close to Nairobi. And then you'll notice another one that comes back and goes down to South America. All right, a little crisscross there. And a flurry of activity there in Asia. All right, let's talk sub-hunters. Now, the big key takeaway is over the left coast, down over Baja, etc. You notice the broken traces that head down towards the Caribbean. I will tell you, ever since I did my sit rep on the Dragon's Den, talking about all the assets that were being moved, etc., down into the Caribbean, the War Department has done a sensational job at tightening things up. Now, also, you see this flight right here over Europe? This is a Navy P-8. They have a classified pod on there that has the ability to do some spectacular things. And they're obviously getting a very good intelligence look into Belarus, et cetera. And then you'll notice a lot of flights very active south of Okinawa out in Asia. All right. So again, I was talking about Dragon's Den and just we were tracking all the assets. And I will tell you now, when you start to look down at the Caribbean, you cannot really get eyes on hardly anything at all. If you don't catch it live and they just happen to be showing, it is gone. So you have to really be on your toes to catch it. Not necessarily trying to always catch it, just trying to get a finger on the pulse here. So, all right, now we talked sub-hunters, we talked drones, we talked the ISR activity, which all of this is really ISR, but the LaSalle Aviation side. Now let's talk R-135s. And you'll notice a little bit of loop. Last 5 days over the U.S., this is going to be signal intelligence, right? And then that's a calibration flight over L3 out in East Texas. And again, you see nothing down in the Caribbean. That also tells you this is real, all right? The fact that if this was just, dabbling, they wouldn't be hiding all of it, right? And you'll notice an asset, too, that heads out towards the Middle East and goes dark. Again, that tells you too, this is not practice run, right? They're not doing a STO, right? Standard training operation. But over at Asia. Now let's talk E6 Takamo. Look how busy they've been the last 5 days. Left coast, super heavy and busy. Asset moving down to the Keys. Remember, this is talking to your nukes on your submarines. Off the East Coast, off the left coast, right? Center of the U.S., and then out over the Gulf of America, which you do that if you've got a nuclear sub that's out there. Same thing here. Okay. All right. Now let's talk AWACS. Notice down south, right? Out towards Baja, All right, this is an advanced warning aircraft as well. There's a lot of other things too off the East Coast. Those are going to be the E2s, Hawkeyes that are down low over the Chesapeake around DC. And then you can see over Europe, the normal spots, right? A little bit down near Gibraltar. Right, nothing down in the Caribbean. Shocker, right? We kind of expected to see that. All right, take a look at C-17 traffic the last 5 days. Surprisingly, very light, which, again, very surprising because I typically see a lot more flights, maybe 3x this. Last time we checked in fact, it was very heavy. For some reason, it is not quite as heavy right now. You see some assets going up to Alaska. I got nothing into the Caribbean. Nothing, which is absolutely, it's got to be down there. All right. East Coast is kind of thick. Almost nothing going across the drink. All right. And then just real thin chains headed into the Middle East. Right. And into down there towards Doha, into UAE, Qatar, etc. And surprisingly, quite a few flights headed into Tel Aviv. All right. Now you look at the air refuelers, pretty active 5 days. Right, notice left coast, all the way down to Southern Cal, into Baja, out over the danger boxes that are out there over the Pacific. I got one flight that goes down to the Caribbean. Right? You see it? Now, and really, we track it coming back. So it came out, did some flying, and then came back. Now, pretty active over the U.S. Again, this is a big indicator of fighter activity, bombers being transitioned, etc. And you'll notice there's a lot of flights going back from Europe into the United States, which tells you, we're bringing fighters back this terrain. Got one that goes across, but everything else looks to be returning. Then the normal marshaling patterns you see over Europe. That's just the whole rhythm and tempo they have and have had for quite some time. Right, again, you see some flights headed down into the Persian Gulf area. Pretty active over Asia as well. There are many. Let's get to the crux. Now, I take you over to something, and this is going to lay the land for everything we're going to talk about for today. All right. So, coffee, get back and get ready for this because this is a fire hose. I'm telling you, I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you and in a very short span. Now, remember that on July 8th, Bibi Netanyahu arrived to the White House. All right. Pretty much unannounced. Okay. Shows up. Why? All right. Now, the interesting piece to all of this was just before that, around the Independence Day, right, July 4th, there was a lot of talk about releasing all of the files tied to Epstein. Well, Bibi shows up, and now that I look back on this clearly was a message that was nuclear in nature that had to be delivered in person, right? He didn't want to risk somebody secondhand, anything getting intercepted, him being on a phone and it being intercepted. He literally flew over, met with Trump, and then left. Very quick turn. So what was said? Well, the next day, July 9th, Pam Bondi, who has said multiple times she's got the files on her desk and, that it's a lot that has to be looked through, etc. She does a complete about face, right? A complete 180. So that was Bibi showing up on the 8th of July, and Bondi on the 9th of July comes out and says, there's nothing to see here, right? And remember, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, both were furious, right? In fact, Dan Bongino said, I think he was talking about quitting his job. He was so mad over it, right? It was a big, big upset. And then who went to bat for Pam? Right? Clearly, she got a stand down order because nobody acts like that without somebody above you telling you, stop everything you're doing. Okay. Now, about 3 weeks later, right, August 14th, we see, that may be 5 weeks later, we see U.S. Navy assets being deployed to the Caribbean out of the blue. Okay. There was nothing to justify up to that point pushing that amount of naval assets into the Caribbean. And here's why. And I'm going to validate this now. You see what you're looking at on your screen. Do you note the date, November 16th? Okay. Terrorist designation of the cartel, the Sun cartel. Okay. Now, let me show you the effective date on this. Right? Effective November 24th, 2025. So what that tells you right there is this would be, you have to have this designation to get Title 10 authorization for the most part. Okay. That tells you there won't be any war going, like we're not going to be hitting targets inside Venezuela. You're going to see this, the normal status quo. You won't see anything before Thanksgiving, in my opinion, because of that. The fact that this is a predated letter designating a cartel terrorist organization. All right. Now, let's talk Title 10 just for a second and what that actually means. If you look at the designators by title, I'm going to slide this over to you. Look at it together. Right. Title 10 versus everything else. Okay. Title 10, who uses it? The DOD and the military, basically, right? The War Department. It allows military operations, kinetic force, deployment of assets, and warfighting, basically use of force, right? It needs presidential or congressional approval for most offensive operations. Title 50 allows the intel agencies, right? Covert ops, like black ops stuff, okay? Intel collection, clandestine work, often paired with CIA, NSA ops, right? Title 18 is DOJ, FBI, it's law enforcement. They use that for countercrime, domestic ops. And then Title 32 is like National Guard stuff, right? Governor-controlled, state-level domestic missions, right? So that's how these titles all operate. Now, Title 14 is a maritime law. That is what they have been operating under in the Caribbean. Has to be. Because without this designation and Title 10 not being in play, then that means they've been operating under Title 14 more than likely, right? Now, you may remember just recently the whole, Southern Spear was the operation designated, okay? Now that put a different level of funding into play, not Title 10 related. What that does is basically opens up what you would call CLIN funding, right? Cost line item number. And it goes in two different buckets. You either have annual or non-annual, which is 3-year money. So annual is just 1 year money. But when that is activated, you basically trigger the CLIN funding stream. Now I'm talking because the reason I understand the CLIN side is because, I'm an old proposal guy. So I understand how, all these CLIN buckets fall into play, different colors of money. All right. But when that was activated, that triggered the funding stream, right? And that gave them a dedicated budget line, authorized spending. It gives them man hours to apply against it, right? A charge number, so to speak, right? Pays for fuel, logistics, contractor support, and intel support, right? But the key is Southern Spear is not a Title 10 offensive authority, right? So it's a joint interagency task force, or basically that's the structure it falls under, okay? So they're more than likely going to be using the Title 50 type of stuff. Okay, and then Title 14, as we talked about, not war authority. So when you see what I have on my screen here, and we talk to that, that is a key, a big key. That means you're not going to see the U.S. Navy hitting targets inside Venezuela before that date that's here at highlighted here. Okay. All right. Now, let's continue on with some of the news, but this right here is a big piece because it sets the stage. Just like me talking to the BB showing up, Van Bondi doing a 180, and then the Navy being deployed. The reason I think all of this is coming to play is what we're witnessing is containment, right? That is more than likely because BB may have shown up and said, we got eyes on on Epstein. Well, he's alive and well. That changes everything. Right? Everything. And I'm going to go through all the details around why this is a big, big deal. Okay. And why I don't think we will ever see the light of day of any of this. Now, CBS News comes out, will more Epstein files be released? Look, this has been a joke up to this point. Right. And I know Trump has said several times that this is just yet another Democratic witch hunt kind of thing. It's Russia, Russia, Russia. Not the case. In fact, him saying that tells me he's being ill-advised, because I will tell you, your entire base voted for you, including myself, 3 times, right? Because we want to see the swamp drained, right? And we want to see all of the people tied to Epstein held accountable, right? This is crimes against humanity. So let's get into the deets of this, right? So they say, will the files be released? Today's House votes increase pressure on Trump's DOJ. All right. So just brace yourself, folks. It's going to be more disappointment. I will promise you that. After Trump reversal, the U.S. House pushes forward on the Epstein vote. Now, remember, he actually called, I forget the lady's name, Elena something or whatever. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. And most of you guys will remember it. Actually, I was understanding that he called her in because she's the one pushing for this, and she stood her ground, right? And then you see this big ruckus happen with Miss Green, okay, because she too was standing her ground, right? Trump, look, he basically came out when he was on the campaign trail and said he's going to release all of it, right? Do it, okay? But here's why it won't happen. Now I'm going to get into all of that, right? Let's continue on. So U.S. lawmakers are set for explosive vote on Epstein files. Listen, the end of the day, anybody that votes no to release this, they're in on it, folks. Just remember that. If there is only one reason why they don't want this released, well, there's multiple reasons, and I will go into that too. Okay, but to me, if you vote no against this, then you're trying to hide something, right? Exposure. Now, note this, and this is a key takeaway. Trump calls for House Republicans to vote to release the Epstein files. Now, do you note here? There's a key piece to this. House Republicans. Okay, they've got to get, I think it's 3/4 majority in order to actually push this out. House Republicans. House, right? He's not talking on Congress to release it. And let me just back up and say this. At any point, if Trump wanted it released, he just signs it away and it gets released in its entirety. The buck at the end of the day stops with him, right? Just remember that. Okay, now it's time to get into the deep here before we start talking Venezuela. All right, why the Epstein files will not be released, okay? This is a short, surgical, and brutally clear, all right? The Epstein network wasn't a scandal. It was an ecosystem, and exposing it would detonate multiple sectors of the U.S. government, intelligence community, financial system, and global alliances. Here's why nobody touches it. Number one, it would expose intelligence operations, not just crimes. Epstein wasn't just a pervert with money. He was a cutout, right? An intelligence asset. Likely multiple agencies are tied to this. CIA, Mossad, MI6, private, international community contractors, right? Continue on. Right? Releasing the files would expose informants, methods of compromise, blackmail pipelines, surveillance operations, covert funding sources, foreign intelligence cooperation. This is the kind of material that collapses governments. No administration, whether it's Trump, Biden, or anyone, would greenlight that. Releasing files would expose informants, methods of compromise. All right, we talked about that. Ready? Okay. I just redid the same thing again. Okay, here we go. Number 2. I got too many buttons here, folks. I'm telling you, I'm overstimulated. Bear with me. All right. It implicates powerful people on both sides, right? Not a partisan scandal. It's bipartisan, multinational, and cross-institutional. Names reportedly include billionaires, celebrities, academics, diplomats, foreign leaders, finance giants, tech founders, right? High-ranking officials from past administrations. Releasing the full file equals mass resignations, criminal exposure, global diplomatic fallout. Congress, they're not going to do this. Why? Because it'll blow up its entire donor network, right? Okay. And then on top of that, these files include minors, folks, sealed testimony, and protected victims. Legal reason number 1, you cannot legally publish identifying information about minors who were trafficked. Full stop, right? Legal reason number 2, this is in the Bondi swim lane. Much of the material is under protective orders due to graphic content, unreleased victim statements, private medical records, sealed depositions, right? Even if Congress wanted to release it, federal judges can block them, and they will, and they have been. It risks national security blowback from foreign governments. The full files reportedly include foreign nationals, foreign intelligence personnel, foreign political elites, foreign blackmail operations, right? If the U.S. exposes foreign officials, countries retaliate. Sanctions, expulsions, intelligence blowback, trade fights, diplomatic crisis, tracking. Number 5, it's likely to intersect with ongoing covert operations. Espionage-linked traffic networks don't just end. They rebrand, they morph, they get consumed by other agencies. Some of the people in Epstein's orbit may still be, and likely are, active intelligence assets, confidential informants, currently under surveillance, and part of an ongoing counterintelligence case, right? Releasing files compromises all of that. Number 6, it threatens the legitimacy of the system itself. All right, this is the part no one says out loud. Revealing the truth would prove that powerful people are protected, law enforcement looked away, the intelligence community enabled exploitation, courts protected the elite, and the media buried it. The public fallout would be nuclear. Worse than Watergate, worse than Church Committee, right? Worse than, COINTELPRO, all right? Worse than Russiagate. This would shake the foundation of our very republic. Number 7, Trump personally has multiple strategic reasons to avoid release. Whether he's clean, involved, or adjacent, Trump has reasons to avoid full release, right? A, he knows the international community was using Epstein. Exposing the program exposes the agencies he needs for things like cartel ops, Iran ops, deep state purges, foreign leverage, internal security. B, it implicates major Republican donors. Some of Trump's biggest allies have proximity to Epstein. RNC would melt down. C, it could show what Trump knew and when. Even if he didn't participate, knowing about the network and not acting is politically lethal, right? And D, it risks destabilizing his presidency during multiple global flashpoints. He's already moving ships, repositioning assets, and preparing for multiple hotspots. A domestic intelligence earthquake isn't strategically advantageous. Bottom line is this. Epstein network was not a crime ring. It was an infrastructure. It connected intelligence agencies, elite power brokers, and global financial structures. Releasing the files would not arrest 20 people. It would detonate the entire system. Everyone. Trump, Congress, the agencies, foreign governments. Right? It has a motive. He has a motive. actually to keep it sealed. Right now, look, let's say that the House green lights it and Congress decides to shoot themselves right in the foot, which stranger things have happened. Okay. What are we going to look at? This will be exactly just like we've seen in the past. Oh yeah, you'll get a push, a release of a handful of documents, and over the next 20 years, it'll be like the JFK stuff. Actually, 80 years. Okay, they're not going to release this anytime soon while people are still alive tied to it. All right, if ever. But if you do happen to get some of it, it's going to look like this. It's going to be heavily redacted, and it's going to be a slap in all of our face. And then what happens here? That's the next big call, right? So when you do this to the American people and then you push this crap out to us, what do you think our reaction's going to be? Kiss the midterms goodbye. You can kiss just about anything tied to our government goodbye, because people are going to be mad, because this, folks, is what we voted for, right? We voted to see these people accountable. And in order to take the deep state down, this right here, this is a tripwire. You implode this system, the deep state goes down. Takes everybody else with it. Okay. All right, let's continue on. Now, Trump is suggesting airstrikes on cartels in Mexico and Colombia, right? Said it's okay with him. Well, again, we got to get to Title 10, which with the designation, terrorist organization, that'll get you there, right? Now, you may notice, too, if you're watching the news over the weekend, that Mexico City was a hotbed of unrest. I mean, absolutely next level unrest. They were mad about corruption. They were mad about, the cartels. They're mad about everything. And they handled it with violence. Absolutely. I saw them pulling the police into the crowds and just giving them whooping and a half, which was just unbelievable to watch. So, look, at the end of the day, you're going to clean it. You're going to have to do it all in. You can't just do little pockets of it. It's like these are you think of them as terrorist networks, but they are highly embedded with agencies. How they make their cash flow, folks, including NGOs, etc. Now, take a look. This is the latest map of all of the assets around the Caribbean. You can see everything is stacked up. A lot of stuff is still kind of out on the Pacific side and not quite into the Caribbean proper, so to speak. But we've got a lot of things happening. B-52s flying off the coast. B-1 bombers flying off. We've got air refuelers that are out here, which means that's a good indicator that you've got both fighters and bombers. And then you've got, the USS Ford operations coming into play, which is a carrier operation, which you don't really need the air refuelers quite as much because they'll be running off of that ship pretty frequently. So this is a pretty big stack up. And again, this to me is containment. This to me is Bibi Netanyahu showing up saying, your boy's still alive. Okay. That's the response that you would more than likely engage the intelligence community, who would confirm that he is still alive based on that information. And then you roll out the ships. And now you're trying to contain the situation, because if he gets out, he gets captured, then everything that I just discussed, you're just pulling the pin on a hand grenade at that point, right? Now, do it right. You can do all of this and roll it out and do a very controlled burn, so to speak. Then maybe. But if you don't, be wheels off, folks. All right. Now, Trump hints that the U.S. might still be talking with Maduro despite huge force buildup. I think this is just a stall tactic. I don't buy it for a minute. Again, we've talked about the fact that Maduro is heavily aligned with these cartels. And if indeed that is the goal of all of this, then that guy's got to be changed out. No two ways about it. All right. Now, we talk about Maduro and the huge force buildup. Let me take you back over here and let's just show you where we are in terms of the assets. Very heavy in terms of what is out there now. You can see the entire Caribbean chain is very active, very busy. Got a lot of stuff flowing in. So pay attention to that. Puerto Rico is going to be one of the big major hubs, as is Guantanamo Bay. We'll keep an eye on Gitmo just to see, once all of this stuff kicks in, what is being flown in and out. Right now, you got it where a dead man tells no lies, right? So you're taking out 20 cartel boats so far. You're able to do that under Title 14 maritime law. These are undesignated craft, and that's why they're being popped without anything, no survivors. Okay, so now take you to this was open source intelligence defender over on X, and there's satellite images showing the watercraft out in the Caribbean. If you take a look, and again, you'll see the spacing. You can see some of the clouds tied into that image as well. But let me take you back over here real fast, and I'm just going to pull up, as we talked about before, same kind of an aerial view. You can see that the assets that are actually out there. And then you'll notice there are some unspecifieds that are actually pinging in the region. I don't know what those are. Could be carrier related, could be just, naval assets related. There's a lot of stuff not showing, but again, you got to look at the gaps of the flow, and that would tell you pretty much where things are located. You're looking at the gaps. Okay. Now, the other thing too, we mentioned looking at the NOTAMs, you'll notice there are operational boxes out here. This is a surface and above. So that means from ocean level up to space. Looks like unmanned free balloon stuff. There are 59 unmanned free balloons varying in size, weight. I don't know what this is about. Some kind of, and I don't know. I don't know what this is. Okay. Some type of observation. Could be intel community, but just a weird designator. At least this is where you see all of the through the danger boxes here with the flight activity we looked at the beginning. Now, the thing too that we're going to keep an eye on is this area. I don't know that the U.S. will actually put any type of a box out here. They may, as we get closer to Thanksgiving, just so people kind of get a feel for the tempo, especially airlines that are running operations in and out of South America, back into the islands as well as the U.S. We'll keep an eye out for that. All right. Now, also something that happened just a few days ago, if you didn't hear about it, but evidently gang members got into a pretty heated exchange with the U.S. Marines. I think this is interesting just because of the fact that as we talk about what's going on here in Haiti, right? You can see this danger box over the area now. When you've got a multitude of naval assets stacked up inside the Caribbean and on the outside too, the dumbest thing you can do as a gang is to spark a fight with the Marines, all right? Because you're just going to get wrecked. So, crazy to think that they would actually do that. But that's Haiti for you. And we'll keep our eye on that because this could expand beyond what we typically would see South America-wise, et cetera. Okay, one last little piece. Now, as I noted, we have the prince from Saudi Arabia arriving today, spending the day at the White House. He is key to all of this Mideast peace part, right? In fact, you may remember October 7th attack on Israel. Just a few days before that, Bibi actually made a comment that this normalization agreement with Saudi had already been inked, but it was not made official. So it looks like there's a bunch of signatures already tied to all of this Mideast peace stuff. It just hasn't been officially released. So having the crown prince from Saudi over here in the U.S. is a big part of the Mideast peace portion. And it also may be an eye lock on what's going on with Iran, because I think looking at the stack up of assets going into the region right now, there's a very high probability that going to go into the next phase when it comes to Israel, Iran, and the United States. Right? Got to get that stuff out of the way in order to get true peace into the Middle East. But here's one for you. So remember, we had the Gaza peace plan that rolled out, but Hamas actually rejects vital conditions of this peace plan. That was just released today. We're going to see how this plays out, but that's a pretty bad deal if that is indeed the case. So we'll keep eyes on that part because I do think this has the potential to also spark some additional heat in the Middle East. So, all right, folks, look, I threw a lot at you. Bottom line is, I think that Bibi's arrival was a hand-delivered message that said, your boy's still alive, okay, which they may have already known, but, and that stems what happened with Pam Bondi, with her 180. It explains why the Navy just all of a sudden threw all these assets when nothing was really going on publicly down to the Caribbean, and why we're in the situation we are in today. And again, I showed you exactly why I don't think any of this will ever see the light of day, because there are so many different things tied to it that they can't technically release it all. And so I think people are going to be pretty butthurt level Bravo when they get played on this. All right, listen, that's it. Keep powder dry, stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out.